Welcome to By the Way with Beth and Stacey. I am Beth Cooper.
I'm Stacey Earlywine, and we have another good show today. Going to be informative.
Informative, yes. We're going to talk about a little local war history.
Yeah, a little local war. I like the war history.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's important to keep all those people in our minds of people who've shaped who we are and that type of thing. And it's very interesting.
Yes, yeah. So
I don't know what else is happening. How's the wedding coming?
The wedding plans are great. My oldest daughter's getting married on May 31st, which is a Friday, which is going to be fantastic, and it worked out great for our schedule. So it's a good. It's going to be a great day. We're excited, and they're getting married in her fiance Alex Larch's family home, which is an old Victorian home that they have been restoring on the corner of East 6th and Sycamore in Flora. It's a beautiful home. The inside is just gorgeous, and his family, Craig and Becky Larch, have done an amazing job restoring this home. And my daughter Malia shares my love of old houses and history, and Alex does as well as his family. His parents love history, and they love old homes, and they love the history behind this home. And so they have pictures that they have acquired through the years of other people that were married in that home.
Oh, yeah, those are fun.
Years ago by the original family, the Bowman family that we've talked about on the show. And so it's neat to see old weddings there, and then to think that her wedding's going to be right there. The ceremony's just small, private family ceremony, but we're going to have a big reception later that night somewhere else. But it's just, I'm excited. I think it's going to be a really cool personal ceremony that really just fits them. You know, it's their personalities and their, I don't know, it's just them to get married there and have it small and the history of the house surrounding him, and I just think it's cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty, and and then there's a big reception afterwards.
Yep.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. I mean, I see so many of these young kids, and everybody's growing up and getting old, and
I know.
I guess that's just part of life.
I guess so. I mean, that was the goal, was to raise her to be an adult and to be a smart adult that could think for herself and take care of herself and be happy and make good choices, and she's done all of those things.
Well, the best, it's like, because I'm on the other, I mean, I've shocking to me that my youngest son, Connor, Mac will be 33 in June, and Connor, my baby, turns 30 this year in August. So I'm at, my two sons are going to be in their 30s, and there's just nothing better than seeing your grown children thrive and be successful and not be morons. It's great.
Yeah, you have great kids.
It's great. It's the biggest compliment you ever have is when somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh man, I ran into Mac. That gosh, he's a great guy.
Yeah,
I saw Connor. Connor was man, he's a great kid. Yeah, I mean, I brag on my boys all the time. I constantly get comments on them.
You should.
Yeah.
They're good people. They're great guys. They really are.
There's a certain time you know. I've said it before, I loved every stage they were in. When Jim and I were first married, I loved that stage. We had babies and toddlers. I do love toddlers. Toddlers are awesome. And then those weird teenage years, and then high school years, and then young adult years, and college years, and it's great. And I would keep telling you, wait till this grandparent gig kicks in.
Yeah. Yeah, I've loved every stage too, but
this
is a fun one.
I like Empty Nest.
Yeah, I think I will too, but it'll be a while till I'm empty nest.
It's going to be a minute.
This is the first one leaving the nest, and it's going well.
Because how old is Malia's, 19?
She's only 19.
How old's Silas?
He's 12.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Silas is going to, because Silas is going to have that, like Linda, because what's the age difference between Silas and Carissa?
3 years.
Oh, so just 3 years, because I was almost like an only child, because there's 9 years between me and Diane. And so Diane moved to Panama City Beach when she was 20, so I was 10. 11, something like that when she left. And so I don't remember a childhood with Diane but then Linda got married in 81. She graduated in 80 and got married in 81, and she was gone. Thank God. She was
She was mean to you, wasn't
She
she?
was a mean sister.
Mean sister.
I can't believe that we're as close as we are today because Linda was mean.
That's good.
Yeah, Linda was
you are
mean.
close now.
But the thing about it is Linda was like, man, I was a bad sister. I'm like, darn right.
Yeah. Well, at least she recognizes it.
Yeah, she does recognize
Yes.
it. But she laughs about it.
She thinks it's funny.
She thinks it's funny. But yeah, so it's, it's one of those things. But then when I was in high school, I had my high school years all to myself. Mm-hmm. It was great. We're like Mac and Connor, I think.
Yeah.
Connor was a freshman when Mac was a senior.
Yeah. Well, I have a brother. He's 8 years older than me, so it was kind of like you and Diane.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be totally different.
I had, I was kind of an only child later on because he was already gone out of the house.
Yeah, you
so
were.
I had mom and dad to myself.
And I wonder if brothers and sisters, because Diane and I are really close, even though she left me with Linda. And I wonder if brothers and sisters are as close as brothers and sisters and sisters.
I kind of think no, but I don't know.
I always wondered about that, if brothers and sisters were really close, because I don't know, because I feel like, brothers and when Mac and Connor my son Connor, Mac is here in Clay County, and then Connor is in Belleville, but when they get together, I mean, it's just like nothing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're
buddies.
They
That's
just
good.
go right back at it. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Do you have an ad to start this show?
I do have an ad.
What are we gonna look at
I'm
today?
going to find it.
Okay.
Let's see.
We
Let
always
me
start
get out
our
my
show
handy dandy.
with an old ad.
Yeah. Oh, look at
And-
this one that I found.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, let me find it here in my notes here. This one's an interesting ad. I love this.
Out comes starch, limp go whiskers.
It's a whisker, soaks whiskers softer. It is William Luxury Shave Cream.
Oh.
But look at this thing, because it's like we've got the twin action shaving cream, softens skin, wilts whiskers down to the base. I mean, this guy right here, Bill Titan, 7 times U.S. champion, finds Williams wilts every bit of starch out of my whiskers. My face feels a lot cleaner and cooler too when I use Aqua Velva after shaving. See, we've been using these people for a long time. Paul Runyon, former U.S. professional golf champion, says, I've tried them all and come back to Williams Twin Action Cream every time for closer shaves. I love this ad because it's, oh, look at the wrestler up there.
Yeah.
Ed Strangler Lewis, former world's heavyweight wrestling champion, says, of all the shaving creams I've ever tried, none takes the starch out of my tough, wiry whiskers as quickly as Williams. And then I can't really read the football. This one is Friedman, Michigan's famous. He's a coach. He was a football player. Now he's a coach of New York. Sure, I can't really read it because it's my page is off right there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just thought it was kind of an interesting, made by a special homogenizing process. Williams shaving cream has a greater capacity to hold water than ordinary creams. It soaks the starch. Who knew we had starch in our whiskers?
I did not know.
Well, we actually don't, because I've studied hair and there is no starch in the hair.
So
out of your whiskers quicker than any other popular cream. Tests show it instantly softens the scaly outer skin of your face. Allows blade to shave at the base of each hair. Try a tube. I don't know.
Try a tube. No thanks. I'll pass.
I thought that was just a cool ad the way they used. I mean, we've been using sportsmen, now they do, beer commercials and insurance commercials, and the marketing's been crazy for years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Want them in ads? I don't know.
So you got something to talk about today? Do we need to go?
Well, yeah, we can get started. We're going to talk about World War I today. So
okay.
A lot of times when we've talked about things, I feel like World War I, also called the Great War, it's kind of skipped over a little bit in Clay County history. I mean, we tend to focus on World War II. That's a little bit more recent. We talk about Vietnam. We talk about the Civil War because we like to go back that far. And we've even talked about the Revolutionary War soldiers that were buried in the Lost Cemetery.
But World War I, we don't see much.
World War I, we don't talk about a whole lot. But, I mean, this was a really, really big deal, And so I'm going to kind of talk about how World War I affected Clay County in particular.
Okay, you got a couple minutes, so you can dive into it a little bit, and then I'll stop you.
I just want to say that this research paper that I found, that I'm getting most of this information from, was written by Ryan Hurtis. I do not know Ryan, but it was.
Well, that name sounds familiar.
It was listed online. It was from. the I think it was U of I had it. And it was a research paper he wrote on World War I and Clay County and how it affected Clay County. And so thank you, Ryan Hurtis, if you're out there. I'm using your research, and it's a well-written paper. But basically, World War I, 1917, 1918, 1919, that's what we're going to talk about. April the 4th, 1917 to June 30th, 1919 is kind of basically where the time frame I'm going to specifically talk about. So in Clay County in the 1910 census, before World War I, the population of Clay County was 18,661. Okay. And then in the 1920 census, which was right after the Great War, we had went down a little bit to 17,684. So about 1,000 people less, give or take a little bit. Now, I don't know the most recent 2020 census number, but I know in 2000, the census number for Clay County was 14,560. So back then, in the early 1900s, the population of Clay County was greater than it is today by several thousand, by 4,000 to 5,000 more people than there are now. That's going to be important to the story. I don't know how much time I have.
Oh, you got a couple minutes.
Okay.
Go ahead, dive into it.
Okay. So back then, the main newspaper in Flora was called the Southern Illinois Record. Okay, that was the local Flora paper. So a lot of the sources used in this came from our own paper. And on April the 4th, 1917, the title on the Flora edition of the Southern Illinois Record, great big across the front. I wish I had a copy of this. It just said war, great big. You can almost, if you close your eyes, you can envision it. The newspaper, the headline is nothing but war, okay? That was the day that the U.S. Senate, by a vote of 82 to 6, passed a resolution that placed the nation in a state of war with Germany. President Woodrow Wilson took immediate steps to put the country in a state of defense and to carry on war against Germany. So that was April the 4th, 1917. All the paper, it was just war, and then it went into the story.
What did Germany? I don't know much.
Germany.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't know a lot about World War I. It seems to focus on World War II, but Germany.
Germany. What again? They had the Kaiser or whatever. I think I'll have to pull this up, but. Basically, I think they were just trying to take over everything again. Okay, so it said it can be argued that almost immediately following the resolution from the U.S. Senate that Clay County began its involvement in the Great War. Wow. So some things started immediately in Clay County. As soon as Woodrow Wilson announced that, Clay County sprang into action.
Okay, and on that note,
we'll talk about that in a minute.
We will take a commercial break. We'll be right back.
At your locally owned Napa Auto Parts stores in Flora and Louisville, you can count on experts to have the solutions to keep you running on the road or in the field. More than just your car, the Napa Auto Parts stores in Flora and Louisville carry a large inventory of Napa products for farms, heavy trucks, and just about everything that moves. Experienced associates understand your needs and are ready to help with the perfect part at a great value. That's Napa Know-How at your locally owned Napa Auto Parts stores in Flora and Louisville. Briscoe Surplus Sales on the northeast edge of Flora is your one-stop do-it-all shop. Looking for rugged boots and footwear from great brands like Lacrosse, Rocky, and Carolina? They're there. How about top-notch small engine parts and service? Briscoe Surplus Sales has it. Whether you're wiring your switches or switching your wiring, Briscoe Surplus Sales has the solution and the know-how to help you get the job done right the first time. Briscoe Surplus Sales, your one-stop do-it-all shop.
We like technology at Flora Savings Bank. Here's what you can accomplish in our mobile banking app in less than 30 seconds. See account balances in your transactions, set up an account alert, make a transfer between accounts, get an alert text message about your transfer, pay a bill, turn your debit card off and then back on. It all happens in the palm of your hand with our free My Bank to Go app. Search My Bank to Go in the App Store or Google Play and give mobile banking a try. Flora Savings Bank, member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Welcome back to By the Way with Beth and Stacey. Today we're talking about how World War I affected Clay County and what really happened in Clay County during World War I. Okay, so war was declared and things started happening, and it can one of the very first things that happened was the Women's Club and the Commercial Club of Flora, which we talked about the Commercial Club on another episode.
And we've talked about the Women's Club.
Yeah,
the Women's Club.
they're both really big. They had a lot of members. They jointly scheduled a meeting that requested that all patriotic citizens attend. The meeting was held at the Casino Theater on Friday, April the 6th, and I believe that is, did we decide the casino was the upstairs above the Glitzy Girls, on the side the antiques are on?
Yeah.
That's where they were. They called the purpose of for garnering volunteers for a loyalty meeting in the community, and the loyalty meeting was scheduled for Monday, April the 9th. So after the first public meeting on April the 6th, the room was incredibly crowded. A whole bunch of people showed up for the meeting. National songs were sung, short talks. Basically, I think it was a big pep talk. A
big rally.
Big rally. We're in this, and we're gonna do our very best and be a great county, and serve our country. An invitation was extended to the public by the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Boys to extend or to attend a flag raising ceremony, and they did that at the Roundhouse at 4:00 the following evening. And then that meeting continued on until late at night. So they had this big flag raising, another rally at the Roundhouse. I mean, there was.
That's whenever everybody being a patriot meant something.
Yes, when being patriotic meant something. The flag raising ceremony in Flora was held on Saturday, April the 7th. That one was well attended. That was North Avenue. The whole basically from the Roundhouse all the way to the downtown was full of people. Everyone was downtown. The Roundhouse Boys had erected a flagpole 56 feet high, upon which they raised an 8 by 12 foot flag while a band played the Star Spangled Banner.
Wow.
Hats were removed, and as the flag was unfurled, a mighty shout arose from those present. This was followed by a flag salute led by the Master of Ceremonies, W.D. Scudamore. It was reported that more than 3,000 men, women, and children waving flags, shouting, and singing made a scene that was inspiring and not to be forgotten. That gives me chills because I can just picture our downtown.
Oh, can you imagine?
3,000 people downtown.
Our population's 5.
Yeah, it would be like every single person basically showed up.
Oh, my God.
Waving the flags, singing the Star Spangled Banner, feeling patriotic, feeling connected to their country, supporting their country, unified with each other against a cause. Nobody doubting the cause, nobody that just wanted to stir up trouble and say this isn't the right cause and protest it. They were all unified. You were
singing on the wrong side of the street.
All unified.
Wow, that's great.
This.
Oh gosh.
The big demonstration, which was referred to as the loyalty meeting that was scheduled to take place on the evening of Monday, April the 9th, was postponed because of bad weather. But then it was the following night, and it began with the raising of the American flag and a public program filled with speeches and singing. It was said that every speech was good, short, and to the point, and breathed the true spirit of loyalty. This program was followed by a parade, and it was estimated that at least 5,000 people had gathered in the streets for this event. So if you didn't make it to the one prior, by now word had spread, and it was like, you got to go. It's great. We're all together. We're all on the same side. We're going to do our part, and let's get involved.
Wow.
So Flora was not the only community in the county that showed its patriotism. According to Burl Reinhardt, who had written some Sailor Springs history, that there were many places all over the county that were doing the same. It said, while the boys were away fighting the war, the people who left at home went all out for patriotism, and with the exception of maybe a slacker here and there, the majority were eager to do their bit. There were many members of the society who donated freely towards the cause. Okay, so now we're going to talk about enlisting for services, because it's...
Before you go on, though, so like World War I, we had the Revolutionary War, and then we had the Civil War. So World War I is the next war after the Civil War, correct? And the Civil War ended when?
1870.
So you're talking, and this is
like
1914. So you're talking 44 years later now, war is coming in. So this is kind of like the first time we're fighting
a great war. There might
great-
have been a little war in there somewhere that.
But
we
this
went
is
off
the
to
first time that like we're like going, because now at this point America is a young country and we've only fought amongst each other. Fought the redcoats and blah blah blah, and then the Civil War. So this is the first time we're like going. That's kind of an interesting. So now we're got to enlist.
Yes. So the purpose of the patriotic community meetings and events was twofold. It had two reasons for having these events. First, it was to increase favorable support for the war in the community. And then second, it was to propel individuals into action.
Okay.
And it did both of these. So it was not long until it became evident that these events were starting to have their desired effect, and men from the county began to enlist.
Makes you wonder if they knew what they were
getting themselves into. No, I don't think they had a clue. It was reported in the April 26th edition of the Southern Illinois Record that the following Clay County men went to Olney and enlisted in the Company L for service. These men's names were Reed O'Haver, Gerald McKnight, Lloyd McCulley, and Ivan High of Flora, Joseph Wood and James Blair of Louisville, Chester Sisney and Byron Cottle of Xenia. They were accompanied by Earl Ricketts of Flora, who had flight experience and went to Evansville to enlist in the aviation service. So he wanted to be a pilot, so he went all the way to Evansville to enlist. So that was just the first several, okay? Then in the next edition of the newspaper, it was noted that even more went. Eugene Mitchell, James Higgins, Joe Southwick, all of Flora, had reported for examination for the Officers Reserve Training Camp in Fort Sheridan, Illinois. All three had been recommended by the examining board for entrance to the camp and were awaiting orders from the Central Department in Chicago to report. It was added that other several Flora boys were interested in entering the camp but had not received instructions yet. So these boys wanted to be officers. I don't know if they were educated men, so they felt like they could be, but they did pass the examination at Fort Sheridan, and both men were assigned to service in the regular Army. Southwick was awarded the rank of captain, and Mitchell the rank of second lieutenant. So they didn't just go in as privates. These men were. I would. This doesn't say yet, but I think they were probably already had some type of education, and then I think if you did, you could go in as an officer.
Yeah.
So on April the 30th, there was a recruiting officer here of the U.S. station in Vincennes. That's where he came from, and he came to Flora, and he enlisted several more men: George Bass, Fred Steele, John Lauterbach, Cyril Centers, and Lyle Prather. All of these names you can still find around here.
Them, yeah.
This is important. Postmaster Wineland of the Flora community was sworn in as a recruiting officer. So now we had our own recruiting officer. So you didn't have to go to Olney or Evansville or whatever.
So many people were coming out of Clay County,
Yes.
we needed to.
Wineland was quoted as saying that those enlisting before the new selective conscription law takes effect will obligate themselves to service during the war only. After that, 7-year service will be the term. Okay, so what that means, he's saying we're getting ready to start the selective service. If you enlist before the selective service, then you will only have to serve during the war. But if you wait and you enlist after the selective service, then minimum 7 years. Minimum 7 years. So that enticed some men to just go ahead and do it because they thought, well, maybe I might be out in just a few years rather than serving 7. That would be a really hard choice to make.
That definitely would.
During the last week of May of that same year, another recruiter came to visit Flora, and this time it was Lieutenant Laurie of Morrisonville, Illinois, and he was accompanied by acting orderly Reed O'Haver, and they were recruiting for the 6th Regiment, which was stationed at Camp Loudon in Springfield, Illinois. And a total of 3 regiments of the Illinois National Guard were in the federal service, the 1st, the 5th, and the 6th. From these regiments, Flora had 1 man serving in the 5th Regiment, and that was Leslie Jones, and 3 men serving in the 6th Regiment, Lloyd McCulley, Jack McKnight, and Reed O'Haver. The 6th Regiment was expected to be ordered to a training camp in Texas and then to be sent to France with the 1st Division in the coming fall. So they're little by little through April and May, they're getting these men to join, okay? Then in May the 10th, on the Southern Illinois Record, it says that the Women's Club of Flora has announced its intention to organize a Red Cross unit. So this was the first Red Cross unit in Flora. It was desired that every man, woman, and child in the area should become a member. Now, I didn't realize that they even wanted the kids to join the Red Cross.
Yeah.
But they did. This was so everyone could do one's bit for the country by providing comforts for the soldiers. A membership fee of $1 was required to join, while for a $2 membership fee, new members could also receive the American Red Cross magazine. Potential members and the community as a whole were informed there would be work to do and probably materials to be donated with which to make garments. So it was around this time that that quilt that hangs in the Flora Depot was made. That was a fundraiser. We talked about that on another episode where it had the signatures embroidered in it. You paid money to have your name on that quilt. That was one of their fundraisers for the Red Cross. Okay, this part I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Clay County fails to raise a company. Okay, so in the early days of June 1917, an effort was undertaken to organize a company of 65 men for the 9th Illinois Regiment. This was conceded as a failure. If successful, Flora would have become the location of an armory. We would have had our very own armory. You know, there's an armory in Effingham. There's one in Harrisburg. This is how those armories came to be.
How neat.
And so we needed to organize 65 men, and we would have had the armory. However, Flora was only able to secure 27 enlistments. As a result of its failure to organize a company, Clay County was passed up for Harrisburg in Saline County, and Harrisburg was immediately able to enlist 85 men and receive the armory that had been promised to Flora upon organizing a company.
Wow.
Well, I mean, to me, there's a really easy reason that happened. Harrisburg's numbers, their population numbers have always been greater than Clay County.
What is it?
Well, right now, I think Harrisburg has around 10,000 people in the city alone.
Right.
I don't know what it was at that time, but it's always been a bigger town than Flora. So, yeah, of course you can get more men when you have more to choose from.
That would have been super cool, though.
But that's probably why Effingham also got an armory. Right. They also had a larger population.
Oh, yeah.
So, larger population.
3 times, Yeah, Harrisburg's 2 times bigger. Effingham's 3 times.
Wow. So, anyway, okay, so then along comes the draft.
Oh, boy, here we go.
So we're looking at May 18th of 1917, marked an important date in the history of the involvement of the United States in World War I. On this date, President Woodrow Wilson signed the draft bill, and he called up all men between ages 21 and 31 years of age to register for selective service. The date set for registration for the national draft in Clay County was June the 5th, 1917. This occurred as scheduled without any problem. A total of 1,350 men registered on that day, or by that day. The registration could be broken down by township as follows. Bible Grove, 78 men. Blair Township, 89 men. Clay City, 98 men. Harder number 1, 156 men. Harder number 2, 188 men. Hoosier, 85 men. Larkinsburg, 100 men. Louisville number 1, 64 men. Louisville number 2, 79 men. Oskaloosa, 74 men. Pixley number 1, 60 men. Pixley number 2, 45 men. Songer, 77 men. Stanford, 93 men. And Xenia, 62 men.
We're going to take a quick commercial break and come back and talk more about Clay County and World War I.
If you're looking for a loan for your brand new home, call Clay County State Bank. If you want to transfer money so your future will look sunny, call Clay County State Bank. We got checking and savings and bill pay too.
An online bank, you just ask our crew. For all your banking needs, we think you will agree.
Clay County State Bank is the place you need to be.
Clay County State Bank.
At Clay City Banking Company, we're all on the same team, regardless of zip code. At home, work, school, or across the country, you can be part of our team with our cutting-edge mobile banking products. From your hand, you can check balances, transfer money, make deposits, and pay bills. Looking for a loan? We've got you covered with our mortgage, agriculture, commercial, and consumer loans. Join our team today. Clay City, Flora, Louisville, and Fairfield banking companies. We're the hometown banks, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
Tomorrow. Some fear the uncertainty it brings. Some trust the promise it holds. At Grinnell Mutual, we are always looking forward to tomorrow, growing and innovating. So even if the plans you have for the future aren't the same as the plans that the future holds for you, you can be ready. Because we'll be ready, like we have been for over 100 years. Trust in that. Trust in tomorrow. Talk to your mutual agent today.
Your local agent is on the square. Louisville, Clay County Farmers Mutual Insurance.
Welcome back to By the Way with Beth and Stacey. Today we're discussing World War I in Clay County. Not just World War I in general, but how it affected Clay County and what was happening. So we've worked our way up to the draft. The very first draft, the Selective Service had been formed by President Woodrow Wilson. So on July the 10th of 1917, President Wilson called the National Guard into federal service. And exactly 3 days later, Washington formally issued the first draft call for 687,000 men. Whew. On July 12, 1917, the draft was conducted for Clay County. Of the 1,350 men who registered within the county on June the 5th, the names of 214 of those men were drawn to represent the county in the national draft. Okay, so they had everyone registered, and they had 1,350 men register.
And then it was just pull it out of a hat?
And then they draw. Yeah, I think it was done by dates of birth.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember. Maybe that was how they did World War II, but maybe they just drew the names. But
so it was just a luck of the draw.
214 of those men were drawn to represent the county in the national draft. Ultimately, out of those 214 men, only 107 were actually conscripted from Clay County. A complete listing of those individuals called in the county draft appeared in the final July edition of the Southern Illinois Record. This man, perhaps the most unluckiest man in the county at the time. It depends, I guess, on how you look at it. Maybe he looked at it the opposite way. But his name was Charles Leroy McGrew. He was the very first man drafted in Clay County. Wow. He was the first man drawn in the county. His name, I guess, was the first one drawn. Charles Leroy McGrew.
Charles McGrew.
He resided 3 miles north of Flora.
Charles McGrew.
Okay, so he went first.
That's interesting. I'm going to write that down.
Mm-hmm. So by July the 20th, the national draft was completed, and nearly 10 million men had enlisted nationwide. 10 million.
That's crazy.
The 9th Illinois Infantry Regiment was commanded by Colonel C.F. Ryman of Effingham and made up largely of companies in southern Illinois. DuQuoin, McLeansburg, Golconda, West Frankfort, Harrisburg, Mount Carmel, Lawrenceville, Centralia, Carmine, Mount Vernon, Salem, Fairfield, Flora, all of these places, okay? They were all mustered into service on June the 22nd of 1917, and then they all had to undergo physical examinations. So this part, they kind of started weeding out some of the ones that maybe weren't really up to it. If they had a problem.
So then it's okay.
So the July 19th edition of the Southern Illinois Record reported that the 9th Regiment had been ordered to mobilize at Camp Loudon in Springfield at once. A bunch of Flora men were in that group: Gerald McKnight, Ivan High, Earl Rickett, Orville Abel, Victor Cleveland, Joseph Woods, Blair, Green, Horde, all of these names, Young, they all go off. And then at the physical examinations, they were hoping to secure 107 able-bodied men between 21 and 31 years old to fill Clay County's quota. The physical examinations were conducted by Dr. Park and Dr. Campbell. Dr. Fairchild served as a re-examining physician, and up to Wednesday evening of that week, 145 physical examinations had been completed, and of those examined, 105 had passed, leaving 40 people disqualified. From the 105 men who passed the examination, 20 made no claim for exemption and went ahead and entered the service. The 85 who claimed exemptions had 10 days to file affidavits to substantiate their claims. All but a few of these exemptions made were claimed on account of dependents. The board hoped to complete the examination of the 214 men notified to appear by noon on Friday of the week following. So I feel like that means they were trying, some of them were saying they had dependents and couldn't go. I don't know. I don't know that I.
Maybe, yeah. Well, because I wonder if they did take single men or men without.
Yeah, I don't know.
It would make sense. Because this is the very first time we've drafted somebody, right?
Yeah. Concerning the breakdown for the first 214 men called, 3 were exempted as municipal and county officers, 54 were discharged for physical disability, 66 were passed and exempt on dependent claims, 11 enlisted or failed to appear for examination, 23 were passed and then appealed to the district board, 4 filed a claim but made no proof, 15 filed a claim and made proof, 1 had or made a claim for discharge on military service, and 37 were passed and claimed no exemptions. Concerning the breakdown for the second 125 men called, 46 men passed and claimed exemptions that were granted, 23 were physically disqualified, 11 passed and claimed exemptions that were denied, 31 passed and claimed no exemptions, 2 failed to appear for physical or for examinations, and 2 were examined by other boards. So every time there was a group of them, some were passed, some stayed behind. They didn't all go. Some of them claimed, you know, I'm the only provider, I would guess would be their claim, and then they were allowed to stay back at home. So now we worked our way through the summer. Now we're up to September 1917. There was a farewell banquet held in Louisville to honor the men of the county who were soon to be transported. And it was proven to be both a joyful and sad day for many in the county. And then they left on Wednesday, September 19th of that year.
Did they leave from our depot? Where'd they leave from? Does it say?
I don't know.
Could you imagine? I mean, just close your eyes and think
They
of that
marched from the
picture.
county courthouse to the railroad, where they went from Louisville to Flora, and then they waited there at the platforms at the depot. And
close your eyes, yeah.
Waiting to welcome them were thousands of people crowding the platforms and all of the vacant places surrounding the depot. From there, the men joined up with others arriving from Marion, Clinton, and St. Clair counties. Okay, so this is September 1st, 1917. The depot was built in 1917. This depot was brand new. It's the same depot that is there today, but it was brand spanking new, and that place was full. Thousands of people were there, crowded all over in any platform, any area. Thousands of people.
Take into consideration now, a lot of times the depot is used for little events or whatever because we don't have trains coming through. But the next time you're like taking your prom pictures there or your homecoming pictures there, stop and think about at that Veterans Walk, think about thousands of people and a train coming through with the whistle coming through and men getting off going to war. World War I. That is a very significant point. It happened right there in Flora at our depot the next time you're just walking around.
Yeah.
The sight would be amazing.
Oh, yeah. The amount of people there. And then from there, men joined up with the others arriving from Marion, Clinton, and St. Clair counties. So not only was our depot just Clay County people, but people from other counties were coming there. Everyone was getting together to go to this Camp Taylor. And from there, they were probably moving on from France. While in Flora, the men were giving a patriotic reception. There, each of the soldiers was presented with a basket of lunch and served with fresh apple cider and Jonathan apples by uniformed members of the Red Cross, which we know we were all about apples.
We know
we're full apples.
The Orchard King of America. That's awesome.
The apples were a gift from Colonel Tanner and Senator Dunlap. The following individuals, this is a listing of the men, which I am not going to read all of their names because by this time there was a lot of them. But I'll just, a few of the last names,
Just
Kellum, Stevens, Campbell, Schreiner, Hall, Cockleasure, Spinner, Smith, Landreth, Cannon, Snyder, Mason, Weaver, Leathers, Clinton, Middleton. There's a lot of them.
families we still hear of today that are all here. They're all related, probably.
2 weeks later, on October 3rd, another group of men, basically the same thing, bound for the same place. Another group. So it just, the groups started to just kind of roll out on a regular basis. Malinsky's, we talked about them. They kind of, an enormous crowd of people attended both the assembly and departure of the third increment in Louisville. And then it just started happening. Boom, few days, 2 weeks go by, boom, another group, few days, 2 weeks, whatever goes by, another group. So it was really starting to hit home with Clay County, and many, many of the families that lived here had somebody that had left. And if they didn't have a member of their family that had left, they had a member that was getting ready to go. It was affecting nearly every family. In October, on the October 25th edition of the Southern Illinois Record, it ran an article that had originally been printed in the Clay City Advocate, which was the Clay City newspaper. It explained that while in Chicago, Dr. E.W. Chrisman of Clay City had received a telegraph wire from the War Department stating that he had been commissioned as a first lieutenant in the Dental Reserve Corps. So the doctor from Clay City went to World War I as a dentist, but he was a well-known doctor from Clay City. So just to highlight some of the soldiers that fought in World War I from Clay County, I'll just pick some of them. I'm not sure I'm going to have time to go over all of them, but I have a little bit deeper information on some of them. The first one, his name was Elias Barker. I like the name Elias.
I like Elias.
Elias, it says on the October 10th edition of the Southern Illinois Record, they printed a story which had first been printed in the Louisville Republican, which was the Clay County Louisville paper at the time. The Southern Illinois Record was honored to learn that Elias Barker, who was born and raised in Ingraham, was the first Clay County soldier to receive a medal for bravery while in action. Elias's father, Tobe Barker, had received a letter the week prior from his son, who was stationed in France, stating that he had been in several engagements and had just been decorated for distinguished services in battle. Although it was not known at the time just what Elias had done, the newspaper reported that Elias Barker had made his mark and was deemed worthy of decoration for some brave act at a time of great peril. The letter had stated that Prime Minister Lloyd George had personally pinned the medal on Elias, and that during the ceremony, Elias had shaken the hand of General Pershing and other distinguished officers of the Allied forces. So the first Clay County boy to receive a medal, Elias Barker.
We're going to come back after a commercial break.
Do you bowl like this? That's great. Do you bowl like this? That's great too. That's because whether you're a pro or you just want to have a lot of fun, at Peggle's Silver Dollar Lanes, we have a lane for you. We have galaxy bowling, gaming for kids and adults, Joe's Pizza, a full bar, darts, pool, and fresh and clean bowling shoes. Boy, does that smell nice. So come on down to Peggle Silver Dollar Lanes in Effingham, where we have a lane for you.
My name is Robin Stanford. I own Stanford Marketing. It's a promotional products business along with an embroidery business. And we do custom hats, t-shirts, anything, you name it, we can make it. People like that we do stuff in-house and we can actually make things here and that we're not contracting the work out to other places. We never say no. We always try to find a way to do it. If anybody can do it, we can do it. We are hardworking women, that is for sure. Come to Stanford Marketing in Flora for all your custom and promotional needs.
Give me a order lumber. Doors, paint, windows,
electrical, plumbing, and much more. Oh, yeah. Give me all your guns, too.
John Lucas.
What?
You better be dreaming about all the stuff we sell here at Zink Building Center.
Oh, I would. Zink Building Center in Louisville on Route 45. It's a cool place.
Welcome back to By the Way with Beth and Stacey. Today we're talking about World War I in Clay County, and I'm kind of highlighting some of the men who served in World War I. And the next one I'm going to talk about is, they just call him Carmichael. I'm not sure his first name, but he has an interesting story. Early in 1917, Carmichael enlisted in Battery E of the 124th Field Artillery, okay? So on July 23rd, he was made second lieutenant, and later at Camp Logan in December of that same year, he was promoted to first lieutenant and placed in charge of calisthenics.
Calisthenics,
for the entire 124th. Okay, so he was in charge of exercise, I guess, but he held that position until being transferred to France to the 108th Ammunition Train. So the calisthenics are over. He's in France in ammunitions. Ugh. He remained in that service until the last great drive in which he was wounded. On September 28th, 1918, a German shell busted his left eardrum and rendered him with shell shock. He developed influenza, which induced cerebrospinal meningitis. The meningitis caused his death on November 4th, just 23 days prior to his 20th birthday.
Oh, gosh.
At the time that his death was reported, Carmichael was believed to be the only commissioned officer that Clay County had lost in the war.
So that he was 19 when he was drafted.
Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't 20. So it would have been a
sad.
younger.
He wasn't even
That's
20.
terrible. He wasn't even 20 years old.
So many of these men that have died in war are so young, though. Victor Cleveland. On November 23rd, 1918, Mrs. Silas Steele received notification from the War Department that her son, Victor Arkell Cleveland, had been killed in action in France on October the 12th. No word of the safety of Bob Abel, Jim Blair, Arch Green, or other Louisville boys in the Company L had been received at the time of this notification. The December 5th edition of the Southern Illinois Record, which printed the above story that had originally come out of Louisville, went on to add that several letters had been recently received in Florida from Clay County soldiers who were in the battle in which Victor had been killed. It was reported that the balance of the soldiers had come out without a scratch. In fact, Archie Green, who lived north of Florida, was said to have been on the side of Cleveland when he fell, right next to him. So these Clay County boys were sticking together, even over there in the trenches in France. According to Green, Cleveland had received 2 wounds, one in the arm and the other in the stomach. The latter proved to be fatal, from which Cleveland died in about 2 hours' time. But it's sweet to me that these Clay County boys they stayed together. They had each other's back over there. Raymond Gager. On September 26, 1918, the Southern Illinois Record reported that Raymond Gager had become seriously wounded in France. Raymond had been among the early volunteers to offer his services to the country and had been stationed in France in active service as a member of the Ambulance Corps for more than a year. Word of Raymond's injury had been received by his uncle, B.M. Maxey, and his wife.
The ambulance, so they're the ones that are picking. That would be a serious business.
Charles Grimes enlisted in Florida on May 29, 1918. The Southern Illinois Record reported that Mr. and Mrs. John Grimes of Florida received official notification in January of 1919 that their son Charles Grimes had been killed in the Argonne battle on November 11, 1918, the day that the armistice had been signed. On March 3rd of that year, Charles' mother wrote a letter requesting information about her son's death. A letter of reply crafted on March 23, 1919 by Hal C. Head, a chaplain with the 111th Infantry, was sent in response to Mrs. Grimes' letter, and it was printed in the Florida newspaper. And this is what it said. Your letter of March 3rd asking about your son's death came to me yesterday. Corporal Charlie S. Grimes, formerly of Company C of the 111th Infantry, was killed November 4th on the Thiencourt front. He was on a patrol with one platoon of his company when some machine guns fired on them and killed about 20 of them. Your son was killed instantly by German machine gun bullets. We buried him there with the others in neat graves with crosses at each head. We had what ceremony we could under the circumstances. It wasn't much because the Germans were still pretty active with shells and machine guns. My heart was heavy and sad for the mothers at home who had given their noble sons in the war. Your son was a fine man and a good soldier. He was well liked by his company and by all who knew him. He was noble and gave everything, even his life, for what he knew was right. My gosh, that's going to make me cry.
I can't even fathom it. Can you?
That poor mother. I mean, if you have a son and you think you're sending him to war at this young age and then he just gets killed over there and they just bury him right there. You don't, no funeral, no nothing. You don't even, she had to write a letter to even hear what happened.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't comprehend it, having two sons.
Oh, man, that's a
It's
hard
awful.
one.
That's a heartbreak.
And,
And the fact that you never get them back.
No, and it just happened over and
thousands
over.
and thousands of times.
So it does say it's worth noting there appears to be a discrepancy in the date that Charles Grimes was killed. According to the chaplain, he died on November the 4th, while the Southern Illinois Record reported he died on November 11th. But according to the honor roll from the state of Illinois, Charles Grimes was killed on November 11th, the last day of the Great War. Can you imagine you lived through the whole darn thing?
The whole thing. How many years did it?
It's like an Alanis Morissette song.
Yeah. How long did it went on for?
About 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, it actually kind of kicked off in Europe, I think, in 1914 with the death of Franz Ferdinand or whatever.
Ferdinand.
But
and it's crazy. All these thousands, hundreds of thousands of people die in wars, all because one. It usually comes down to one person's greed and power. Don't understand it. We'll never understand the evil.
No. Clarence Grimes, a letter from October 24th of 1918 was received from Clarence Grimes. It was written from somewhere in France. It was previously reported that Clarence had lost a hand from a shrapnel shell wound. But according to the letter, this seemed to be a mistake. Clarence explained that he was in a hospital but would soon be out. He went on to add that he and his brother Charlie had been over the top 4 times and had had hand-to-hand encounters with the Huns, whipping them like the pups they were. That's his quote in the letter. It was later reported that Clarence had been severely wounded on October 17th in a fight at Chateau Thierry and was convalescing in a French hospital.
Jeez.
So,
you have time for maybe a couple more.
Okay. Mason Harbin. Mason P. Harbin, whom settled in Clay City some years after the conclusion of the Great War, was a private with Battery D of the 185th FAAE. He wrote a letter to his parents recounting his journey from Camp Upton in New York to Liverpool Harbor in England. This letter was published in the Clay City Sesquicentennial, and this is kind of his remembrance of it. We are leaving Camp Upton this a.m., June 26th. We left there at 9:30 a.m. on the Long Island Railroad. When we got to New York City, we took the boat down the Hudson River, and on the way down on the ferry boat, we went under the Brooklyn Bridge, saw the Singer Building, the Statue of Liberty, and a lot of skyscrapers. When we got to the dock, we got on our transport. The Red Cross women of New York gave us ice cream and cake. It sure tasted good, for we knew it would be the last we would get in the good old USA until we came back. Well, when it was time to go to bed, you ought to have seen the bunch swinging in their hammocks. There was not room for all of them on the hook, so of course some of them had to hang theirs on the floor. But anyhow, they all slept some way. On the morning of the 27th, we pulled out of New York Harbor. There were about 8 or 9 transport ships of soldiers and U.S. submarine chasers and destroyers who went with us for safety. On the same night, the 27th, we got behind the rest. We couldn't keep up with them, so we had to go by ourselves. The reason we could not keep up was that the coal we had wasn't any good. It wouldn't make any steam, so the only thing we could do was go to shore. On Monday morning, we pulled into Halifax, New Brunswick Harbor, and we took coal there and fresh water to drink. It is now Wednesday, July 3rd, and it's raining, and what time it isn't raining, there's always a heavy fog. They say they haven't seen the sunshine since March, but I couldn't swear it. But we haven't seen any sun ourselves on day 1 since we left New York City. That was the first day out at sea. It is now 8 p.m. and time for us to go off and go to bed. So he talks about being in Halifax for a while. And then Sunday, July 7th, we had services on the boat this morning at 10:30 a.m. And now it fast forwards a little bit, and we are in Liverpool Harbor. We came this morning at 6 o'clock. We are on the boat, but I don't know when we will get off. It was a tiresome trip. We were on the boat 18 days, but we got here okay. I'll write to you again soon when we get to our barracks. Love to you all. I remain your son.
Gosh, those are heartbreaking, aren't they?
Yes.
It's sad.
So sad.
It is.
Harlan Henson, he was the son of Mr. and Mrs. Lynch Henson. He died on October 20th, 1918 from spinal meningitis while serving in France. He had grown up 6 miles south of Xenia. So,
it's so sad.
Yeah, just a lot of meningitis over there.
Yeah.
That spreads amongst college students still to this day. It's the right age or whatever. So,
yeah.
Anyway, there's a lot more of them, but it's
You
just
could go-
it's a lot
forever.
of sad stories.
It
And
is.
just a reminder that World War I greatly affected not only the world, our country, but right here in
county.
Clay County. Flora, Xenia, Louisville, Clay City, Ingraham, Iola, all these little towns had men that were serving.
Yeah.
Did their part.
Greatly, too.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep.
Okay, so our quote to end on today is from Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Oh, he's a good one.
A hero is no braver than an ordinary man, but he is braver 5 minutes longer.
Oh. Wow,
Yeah.
that's good.
That is considering what we're
What
talking
we just
about
talked
today.
about. Yeah, he's braver 5 minutes
5
longer.
minutes longer. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we can't comprehend. You know.
No, it breaks my heart
It
to
does
read about
break
them
my
and the
heart.
ones that lost their life so young and their mothers that received the letters, because that just hurts.
It's sad.
Yeah.
That's sad. But well, that's it for today, babe.
Okay, so anyway, thank you for joining us. You can always find us on YouTube. Our channel is By the Way with Beth and Stacey, or you can find us on channel 100, Catch TV daily at 11, new episodes on Thursdays and Fridays. So like us and follow us on Facebook, and we will see you next time.
God bless you and have a great day.